President Cyril Ramaphosa has urged all South Africans to go out in their numbers and make their mark. South Africans prepare to cast their special votes from today until tomorrow, ahead of voting day on Wednesday. Now, in his State of the Nation address yesterday, Ramaphosa has thanked the IEC for their work in preparing for the polls.
There is more work that still needs to be done to reposition our country. Let us draw strength and encouragement from the difficulties we have overcome together. I call upon all South Africans to go out in their numbers to cast their votes in these elections. We are a diverse people, but we are also a united nation. Let us be united in our commitment to advance our democracy. Let us work together to build a better country and a better future. We should all be concerned at reports that came out today about the obstruction of election activities, including unlawful entry at IEC storage sites in KwaZulu-Natal. We once again call upon all parties, all candidates, supporters, and every South African to refrain from any action that could interfere with the due process of the electoral process.
Well, meanwhile, Ramaphosa's address has received backlash on social media, with some political parties labeling it a last-minute campaign for the ANC. In an opinion piece by Dr. Pedro Mzileni from the University of Zululand, he shares how social media is now the battlefield for political parties in this election. We're going to have that discussion and a lot more. He joins us now for more on his views. Dr. Mzileni, a good morning to you. Thank you so much for joining us.
Good morning to you and also to yours.
Well, I think let's start off with this idea of the mixed reactions following President Ramaphosa's State of the Nation address yesterday, that this was a last bid at campaigning. Do you agree with that view?
Yes, I agree. It's unprecedented. Usually after the rallies over the weekend, 3 or 4 days before elections, that's usually the last word we hear from political leaders, but because he's the incumbent with institutional, access to the public broadcaster and also the position of his office, he has utilized it to sort of emphasize the message of the ANC, but also to present himself as the sitting president who should appear as a leader of society in our minds as a last reminder before election. We should go back and vote for him to power. So it was an electoral strategy on his side, definitely.
Yeah, I mean, that's going to be interesting. Of course, the conversations around that are going to continue in the country. But we're getting closer and closer to Wednesday, where millions of us are going to be going out to vote. 1.6 million people going out to cast their vote in special votes today and tomorrow. And there's a big question around whether or not political parties have been speaking directly to the people they need to be talking to, and whether platforms such as social media sway the voter in any way. And I think that a good place to start then that conversation is to say, does Twitter, for instance, or X, represent the electorate, and do conversations there reach people?
Well, X on Twitter is definitely a small platform numerically, but in terms of influence over the electorate and even in the political system generally, it does have a huge influence. I mean, social media has sort of deregulated access to information. Even traditional media houses themselves have now switched to social media as a way to communicate more broadly with the rest of the population. And besides, we're now in 2024. The population of South Africa is more digitally connected than ever before. Access to Wi-Fi and data is more cheaper. So social media now has grown into a site of struggle, a contested terrain for different ideas, especially for the election.
Yeah, it's interesting because you've written this piece and you write in here, and of course you look at the various political parties and how they interact with social media to reach the electorate. You write, the ANC initially viewed social media as a tool of Western imperialism, opposition parties, white corporate media, and civil society to instigate regime change. Quite the idea that you put forward. They unpack that for us. And do you think that the ANC still views social media as a tool of Western imperialism?
Well, the ANC is over 100 years old, and the DA existed during the apartheid regime. It had sit in parliament. It had sit in the apartheid parliament. So those two organizations are a bit older, especially the ANC, which initially viewed social media as a platform of the opposition to speak badly about it. So it had a mistrust of social media at the beginning, especially during the presidency of Zuma. Well, on the other side, the EFF, started by more youthful political leadership in 2013. That was the period when social media was now beginning to have a strong foothold in the political party system. And you can see the innovations that they've developed on the platform. They are much more far ahead on the platform, and they utilize it much, much more effectively as compared to the DA and the ANC. Well, in the ANC, its engagement in social media has improved in the past few years, largely because of the influence of its ANC Youth League, its young leadership, and also the South African Communist Party. That has rather advised the ANC to look at social media as a site of struggle where it should also subscribe and participate. And now when you see social media for the 2024 elections, you see all the colors of these three big political parties. And also for the citizen, it's also a more horizontal, flat surface for them to engage the political leadership directly now, and also be their own journalists themselves to expose information as it comes. But the risk with social media political engagement is that it is also a dangerous terrain where it can only offer pamphlet knowledge, whereby there are only small snippets and risk of disinformation because it does not give the voter in-depth information to engage everything that they need to hear to make informed decisions.
Yeah, well, I'm going back to your piece, and you do really have quite a way with words. You say, Black Twitter is the theater of the critical language of frustration. And which political party, then, do you say has leveraged on Black Twitter as that theater for critical language of frustration?
Well, Black Twitter as a concept is about disrupting the status quo. It's about the frustrations that Black young people are feeling with the capitalist economy that is not making significant changes for Black people. The patterns of the apartheid economy have not changed. Black people remain in townships as cheap laborers, and they are working for the benefits and the privileges of white people who continue to be the owners of the means of production. So Black Twitter has been this platform to express those frustrations, and the EFF has taken advantage of that concept because behind the idea of the EFF is disruption and impatience with the status quo. All other political parties that are coming through, like the DA, the ANC, even the MK party, Action SA, all of them, if you now track how they engage on social media, specifically on Twitter or X, they are also forced now to take that radical, critical language of frustration on Black Twitter in order for all of them to fit into the conversation that is taking place online.
Yeah, I'm looking at the numbers here, and what you've done is you've actually just tracked and looked at the following of some of these big political parties, right? The EFF sitting at 2.2 million followers on X, but its leader, Julius Malema, sitting on 4.2 million followers, which is huge, right? The Democratic Alliance only has 741,000 followers. The ANC has 1.1 million followers, but the president, Cyril Ramaphosa, has 2.8 million. So Julius Malema is seemingly making the biggest footprint where political leaders are concerned on social media. But talk to me about this, where the surprise political parties could really shock us in the numbers when we get to the polls versus what they're able to do and garner on Twitter. I imagine someone like a UDM, for instance, or a Bantu Olomisa may not have a big Twitter following, but the numbers look different on the ground, right?
Yes, definitely. Well, I teach in a university where I engage with my students who are much younger, so they are more connected to these political leaders, and you can see that it looks like the more younger the political leader is, the more popular they will be on social media. Hence, you see Julius Malema there with over 4 million followers as the most popular politician on the platform. And of course, Ramaphosa, the incumbent, sitting on 2.8, and then John Steinhaven lagging a bit behind. But these are just social media numbers. What still needs to be seen is whether they will translate to actual physical votes on Wednesday. As you all know, in the past two elections, 2019 and 2014, despite the popularity of the EFF on social media, the ANC has came through strongly to demonstrate its numerical strength of a majority. But in this election now, the population is more connected online. The voters that are registered are below the age of 40. So the youth vote now is going to have a much more significant footprint. It'll be interesting to see the results. People like Bantu Olomisa and other smaller political parties that are led by older people will need to either adapt or perish, because the future of the South African political system is definitely digital.
I'm keen, you know, we were talking about the trends earlier with my colleagues Aldrin and Andy, and we were seeing how one of the things that's trending in the on X has been Section 24A, and people asking, you know, what does it say about where people go and vote? And I thought to myself, does it mean that that civic education is coming from the bottom up instead of from the top down, right? Where it's not just the IEC that's coming down to tell people all they need to know about these elections. There's something beautiful about South Africans on a platform like that asking the questions themselves.
Well, that's the beauty of social media, like I said before. It allows you, at the comfort of your bedroom or your lounge, to speak directly to those who are in authority. Even journalists these days, of course, it has come at the expense of traditional media houses and job security for journalists. But the beauty about it is that information now is able to spread very quickly. But I don't think we should worry much about the issue of people's addresses on Wednesday. I think people are ready to vote where they are. If someone is on a different address, it will just be a minor inconvenience of circumstances of the year or the week that I think the IEC will be able to handle. But one thing I must say, the IEC in this specific election has done an incredible job in communicating all the changes and all, the important information and data concerning these elections. They've done such an amazing online engagement on all platforms where you could find, even on TikTok, you find their message there. So I think on Wednesday we're good to go.
Okay. Well, let's leave it there. Dr. Pedro Mzileni, an absolute pleasure speaking to you. Dr. Mzileni is, of course, a senior lecturer in sociology at the University of Zululand, saying he writes and speaks in his personal capacity.